shows already the issue. And she mentioned a lot of things which are, including this democratic autonomy, but also many other things which are not so simple, you know, to do. I mean, when it comes to these reforms, of course, another thing is constitutional. The other thing is another laws and implementation of this.
And just to add two words, please, because we have to jump to the question.
Yeah.
Just two things. When we talk Kurdish question in Turkey, we always think alongside with terrorism. Okay, there are two issues together. Okay, and the political side of the Kurdish questions, currently now 36 deputies in parliament, I am sure one way or the other they try to find kind of political solution. There's no problem. But the other thing is that the terrorism in Turkey, something around create $50 billion every year kind of revenue. And these people share in this revenue. And that is the heart of it. And many people, they don't want the terrorism is finished because the $50 billion revenue is intact. That's the reason some hardliner Kurdish politicians, they want something which is not possible for Turkey. Whether the Erdogan government or the other government.
I think even more like I read a couple of days ago an article with one of the Kurdish leaders. He said it's difficult, so difficult to control these young people. Like so, how they.
And secondly, the constitutions. It seems to me that Turkey is going to have not a new constitutions, and more likely going to have further amendment of the current constitutions, because the new constitution currently is not possible to make by parliament because of the partialities and all those parties. But they reach more than 330 votes in parliament if they do partial amendment. It seems to me that that's going to happen as we've done the last year.
Thank you indeed. And now we can jump. We unfortunately have time for 2 questions for audience. So if you have some questions, you have the last opportunity. So yeah.
Yes. The AKP, the Justice and Development Party, is often seen as the main arbiter for Turkey's accession to the EU, at least internally. I mean, they were the force behind the 01 amendments, the 04 amendments, and other things that encouraged Turkey to comply with the stringent European criteria that, first of all, seem to get more and more stringent every year. But if, as the panel has pointed out, that the EU issue is less relevant in Turkey now than it has been before, how is the AKP dealing with this? And then, second question, does the AKP risk losing a lot of votes if this issue fades?
Okay, one more question. There is some other one to ask. It's fine. Okay.
Can I say my opinion? First of all, it is difficult to say that AKP is going to not take the EU issue as a priority. AKP will take the EU issue as a priorities because not Turkey want to be member of European countries, but they want Turkey and the democratizations has to be level of with Europeans. That's one thing. That's very, very important. Secondly, and before the elections, about 6 months ago, 4 months ago, I'm sure Edward is not much better than me because his topic is more related to this area. And the AKP leaders, Erdogan, clearly and openly asked the European leaders. They said that, admit it, are you going to take Turkey in Europe or you are not going to take Turkey in Europe? Then in this term, possibly the AKP party, the Turkish government, are going to force more European leaders than to publicly announce that whether they are going to accept Turkey if Turkey complied with those rules and regulations and whatever it is. I think that's going to happen. If European leaders are going to not admit it, possibly that Turkey is still continue their democratization process, that's for sure, but possibly the Turkish government more likely concentrate on their domestic issues and the Middle Eastern and Asian issues. That's the main thing.
Okay.
Oh,
Last question.
I suppose if no one else has a question, I could respond to that. So, would you say then that the AKP is going to, you say that they're going to focus on these domestic issues. Now, does the AKP have a wide majority? Does it have a mandate on these issues as it does on the EU issue?
I'm sure it does. Then currently, nearly 50% of votes, okay, they won the election with 50%. It means that every one person out of two vote for the AKP. Therefore, there's got the domestic mandate. That's very, very clear. Secondly, Turkish public opinion will not change quickly. Okay, that's very, very important. And thirdly, now the Turkish public opinions and Turkish publics is very wise. Every elections, what I've seen myself, okay, the Turkish, let's say, electorate, they divided the vote into very wisely. Now, for example, when we look at the parliament today, then basically Turkish electorate tell the politicians, you have to reach the consensus in order to find the middle way. Then they have to compromise. They can't do it. If they don't do it, the next election they lost. Because it happened in 2007. It's happened in 2002. It happened previous elections. Okay, so the Turkish people, they are very patient. They will wait 4 years on the terms. But if that election time comes, they clear off the people who did not cooperate. That's for sure. That's the other thing. That one more thing we have to keep on that. And currently, when we look at the individual deputies in parliament, I'm sure more than enough vote deputies are favor of to vote for an amendment of the constitutions, any solution, including the Kurdish democratic opinions and others. Then the parliament currently, they have that, let's say, that kind of people in the parliament. Even the peace and democratic parties and the Kurdish parties, you can find about 6 or 7 members. They are very much moderate. If there is the issue came to parliament, they can vote for it. And exactly the same thing is the ultranationalist parties and the populist parties. They are very much, they have enough deputies who are going to vote for if the issue is the national interest of the Turkey in changing of the constitutions or democratization process. So it seemed to me that AKPs and not AKPs, the legislators, the parliament, has got mandate to make the required change in order to comply with the European standard.
Thank you.
That's something. First, I don't think that this mandate is because of youth, first of all, this 50% taking into consideration the public opinion when it comes to the membership of Turkey, but still I think that it is an interest of AKP to go in this Turkey relations, I mean to develop these relations and to continue it. Although I think that different matters in foreign policy will be very important, especially now right after elections, when it comes to Middle East. First of all, the problem of Syria. First of all, is a very important one. It's in interest of AKP because of many reasons already mentioned. It is the democratization process is in interest of AKP. It's one thing. The other thing is if it will stop the process. I mean, initiative will come from AKP. It will, it will be criticized very hard by opposition, saying, we told you, but they had hidden agenda. Actually, it was not something they want to do. I mean, to develop Turkey EU relations. And coming to the question, because very often the question is asked, but if this process fail, I mean, if this process of accession process will stops, if it stops also the whole democratization process, in Turkey. I don't think so for many reasons. One is when you, for example, look at newspapers during the day of elections, it is very noticeable that what is the position of course it is written by journalists, but it reflects the position of society. It is underlined how important in this titles during the day of elections, how important is democracy, because the titles were the day of democracy, the democratic holidays, celebration of democracy. It is important to go to vote, etc. So it is the role of society to continue it, and it is also important because of this. The government cannot, cannot just escape from it. The other thing is, for example, when it comes to foreign policy, if they want to play an effective role in the Middle East, not talking a lot about this model, because it's another question. But still, if they want to share some experience, we must do this also in Turkey, in the democratization process. Some global issues. I mean, the globalization itself. I mean, it is not. It also influences the development. Of course, there's big literature on it. How the Turkish society has changed, beginning from 80s. I mean, this globalization is connected also with more expressing of identities, and it's also not connected with Kurdish, it's connected with Alevis, for example, in Turkey, etc. So, and this is something which cannot be reversed. Just something has started, and now it will be stopped, and so on.
Thank you indeed for this lecture.